Hey there, fellow adult collectors. Welcome back. David Eon here in the video game room having another open discussion with you, the viewer, about eBay. What else? And some things that you might can do to make your entire eBay experience just a little bit better. If you're new to eBay, if you haven't dealt with eBay very much, there are some things that might help you out. And if you've been on there for a while, you probably know most, if not all of this, but the refresher couldn't hurt. So bear with me. Anyways, in a list form, and we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, number one, have a budget. And this is the hardest one to do because collecting is addicting sometimes. And it's real easy to go outside of your budget, but you really shouldn't be bidding on something if you can't afford it. Or you shouldn't push beyond your limit on something that you feel like you need to finish a collection. You have an action figure that you're after, you have a statue that you're after, or whatever for a set. Especially if you're a completist, it can be very, very tempting to go after something when it pops up for sale, pops up available. But if it's outside of your budget, you've already spent your budget, you don't have the money for it right now, you're really setting yourself up for disaster if you go ahead and pursue it anyways. And like I said, I know it's hard to turn that off. And I think we've all kind of been there. I know I've done it a couple of times, but it's very tempting to do that. It puts you in a bad spot, especially with that seller. If you have to sit there and say, hey, listen, can I pay you like next Friday or something like that? And they're like, hey, dude, pay in 3 days or I'm putting it back up. It puts you in a bad position. So be very careful about that. Don't bid if you can't afford it. Number two, if you have questions, ask your questions before you bid, before that auction ends. And if the seller can't be bothered to respond, maybe they don't need your business. But I mean, there may be something about what you're looking at and you just want to make sure of it. Hey, I want to ask about this, or I think I see a mark here. Can you explain it to me? If you are someone who's really a stickler about mint on the card, mint in the box, make sure you nail any questions about that, shipping, anything, before the auction ends, because after you've bid on it and you're obligated to pay for it is a little late to start asking questions. And I have had that happen to me all the time when I'm selling something on eBay and it's already sold, and then the next day it's not paid for and I'm getting questions about it from the buyer. Hey, can you tell me if this and this and this? It's like, dude, why didn't you ask me before? Why didn't you ask me before? It's annoying. It's very annoying to that seller. And like I said, if they can't be bothered to answer you, maybe they don't want to answer you because maybe there's something wrong and you probably don't need to bid on it anyways. Number three, actually read those descriptions. All too often, people just go by the photograph. You know, they look at the picture and they look at the picture, but there could be something you're unaware of that's in that auction description. And I see this a lot with recarded figures, recarded action figures, or figures with a reproduction card. It's like it tells you, mint on the card, G.I. Joe shipwreck, blah, 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 1985, whatever. And you go and read through the description and find out it's a recarded figure. And that's not what you want. So make sure you actually read those descriptions and don't just go by what's in the photograph, because you could end up tripping over something. You get something you weren't expecting and then it's like, well, hey buddy, it's in the description, so you're stuck with it, right? Number four, actually look at the seller's feedback. I don't think anybody looks at feedback anymore. They leave feedback, really, especially on Amazon too. I don't think anybody looks at Amazon feedback at all or leaves it, hardly ever. But actually look at that seller's feedback. And if there's something negative, don't be afraid to ask that seller about it, because sometimes it could be that they just had a bad run-in with a particular customer. They might have 3 negative feedbacks and you look at it and all 3 of the negative feedbacks are from the same person. It could just be a bad run-in with that particular buyer. Don't be afraid to ask them about it. Hey, I noticed, I don't mean to be a pest, but I noticed there was a negative feedback about such and such. And I'm looking at some of your auctions. Can you explain this? And they'll probably be happy to tell you, oh yeah, such and such happened and this guy didn't understand or whatever, and you can make your own determination from that. But actually look at those feedbacks. I don't think hardly anybody does that anymore. Number 5, don't buy brand name items, especially items that are questionably cheap that are being shipped from Asia. Period. Just don't do this to yourself. They're either going to be defective, they're counterfeit, most likely counterfeit, or they were stolen from a factory, which does happen, and that's usually with loose figures. If you're buying action figures or accessory playsets, whatever, and it's going to come to you loose, China mail, which basically means in a bag, because that when they say China mail, they get a real special rate for mailing stuff from China to the United States. It's cheaper for them to send it from China than it is for somebody in a neighboring state to mail something to you. Believe it. But if they put it in the bag, if they send it to you in a vinyl pouch, it's super cheap for them. And so they'll sell you loose figures. Oh, the latest NECA figure, but it's going to come loose in a bag or whatever. It's probably stolen. It's probably stolen from one of the factories. These guys work in those places, and my son had a run-in with some dealings like this and found out the stuff was stolen. And I've heard this from a few other sources also, but you get the point. Or it's probably counterfeit. Believe it or not, right now, counterfeit toys make up for nearly 12% of toys and action figures on the market. That's how bad it's getting in the toy black market, if you will. And I know that there's an argument about this, and it's a whole other discussion, but there's an argument that, oh yeah, well, that's only going to be hot toys and mezcos and things like that because they're super expensive. No, it's anything that sells. We're talking about a country that counterfeits rice and cooking oil. How much does that stuff cost? Not kidding at all. Look it up. You're sitting in front of the computer, right? Look up counterfeit rice and counterfeit cooking oil. If it sells, they will counterfeit it. Period. So and particularly Asian countries, if it's coming from Hong Kong, China, Singapore, there's a good chance it's not authentic, or it's defective, or it's stolen. You've really, really got to be careful there. Don't encourage those markets if you can help it. Number 6, try not to make really insulting lowball offers on buy it now or best offer auctions. And that's something that drives me absolutely nuts. If you've got something that's worth $120 and you put it up for $100 or best offer, you're already taking a hit on it, and then somebody gives you an offer of $5. I will never work with that person. I don't want to sell them anything. It's so frustrating. And there's people that they do this all day long, hoping that you're going to slip up and accept the offer without paying attention. That's why a lot of people do that. It's annoying as hell. Please don't do that to sellers. And if you're going to negotiate your pricing before you bid and before you win, which is almost another category here, but I'm going to tie it in with number 6. Please negotiate first, because I've had people that have won auctions on mine and say, hey, can I pay you this much instead? It's like, dude, you already won the auction. You already bid. You already bid and beat other people who were trying to bid, who would probably be happy to pay, and now you want to negotiate? Give me a break. I mean, the only time I can condone negotiation is if you bought multiple items and you're like, hey, just asking, you do combined shipping, right? Which you should have asked before the auction ended anyways. Doesn't hurt to ask if people combine shipping. Most of the time they will. But handle all that before the auction ends, and don't be a dick when it comes to lowballing. Don't lowball sellers like that. Try to be fair when you make an offer. Number 7, study those photos very carefully. And really don't use your cell phone. I know a lot of people, they like to flip through eBay on their cell phone. I do it and look at stuff. Go back to your computer and open it up on a real computer monitor and take a good look at those photos. Study them carefully. If there aren't enough photos, or if the photos are really bad and grainy or really dark and you can't tell, and you're like, oh, it looks like it might be all right, it might not. Ask for more photos or better details from that seller. Just ask. And most of the time, they'd be happy to accommodate you. They, but really, do not just take the photo for what it is. Study it very carefully. You'd be surprised if you're really meticulous. You can catch a lot of imperfections that would probably break your heart if it came packaged that way. Number 8, try not to be too impulsive. This is another one. I've done this myself. Try not to be too impulsive. Make sure you actually want that item before you bid. Don't just be, oh man, and then bid on it. Like, oh, did I really need to do that? Or do I already have that one? Slow down. Don't be too impulsive. I know, especially if you stumble over an auction, it's about to go out, and you're like, oh man. And I think I've even done that myself, where I ended up with 2 of the same thing because I forgot I had something. So try not to be too impulsive. Slow down. Slow down. Take a breath. Number 9, research your item. Have a really good idea of what the value is or what the value should be so that you don't feel ripped off after you bid. Really know what you're doing. Make sure it's the right one. Make sure it's from the right year. You know, sometimes, especially with action figures, there's a lot of differences in card backs and things like that. Make sure you know what you've got. Do your research and make proper comparisons before you pay for it, before you bid on it, so that you don't feel like you got hosed when you get your item and you look at it and you're like, wait a minute, is this really worth this much? Do your research before you commit. And number 10, if you have packaging concerns, and this one doesn't always work because I've done this myself. If you have any packaging concerns, deal with it before that item gets shipped. And again, that does not always help. There's been plenty of times where I've contacted the seller and said, hey, you know, I've had a lot of problems with this particular item or this type of item. Please make sure you pack it like this or that. I'm not saying you wouldn't, but I've had so many problems, so much bad luck with eBay shipping. And if you've watched any of our unboxing videos on this channel, myself and LPH, you've seen some of the packaging nightmares that we have gotten. Scary, scary stuff. I once received 3 action figures that were literally taped together and then wrapped in Christmas paper and had a label put on it and shipped. And yeah, you can well imagine it came completely destroyed. Plus, getting that tape off was a nightmare. People will do any old crazy thing, even after you contact them and say, hey, you know, please don't ship it like that. Sometimes they do, but if you have concerns, address it before they ship it. Even before you pay for it, you might want to send them a note and say, hey, please do this or don't do that. Doesn't hurt to try. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. And you know, I'll do one more for you. And because I'm thinking about this, because I just mentioned it, we do our unboxing videos. We do the unboxing videos for, you know, to show our subscribers, you know, what we're doing in the toy museum, but also for our own safety. And we started putting together those videos out of the clips from us doing our unboxings. Film your unboxings. Film your unboxings. It may be the only proof that you have that you're telling the truth if you have to contact eBay because there was a problem. And don't be afraid to complain if something's wrong with your delivery. If it comes smashed up, you contact that seller. If the seller blows you off, you contact eBay. Most of the time, eBay will side with the seller. Side with the buyer, I mean. Sometimes they don't, but most of the time they will side with the buyer. And as I pointed out, I have gotten, and so has LPH, lots of badly packaged items, even after requesting of the seller to please be careful. So if possible, film your unboxings. Use your cell phone if you don't have a camera. You can film it for a few seconds, just cutting the box open and pulling the thing out just to make sure it's good, and then you can delete it if it's fine. And if the seller won't cooperate with you and they're like, I don't take returns, if they didn't do right, eBay will force them to take that return or force them to make some kind of an offer to you to make things right, as long as it's done within a certain time frame. So there you go. I hope that made a lot of sense. If you get where I'm coming from, please do give the video a thumbs up. If you have any other suggestions, go ahead and put it in the comment section down below for some of the other viewers or for me. Please share it if you can. Subscribe if you're new. All of that good stuff. Find us on Instagram. Open by Chance on Instagram. And I will see you again soon. So thanks for watching.